Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now today I'm going on a slightly different format than usual because I was thinking the other day, we talk about men's style, we talk about dressing better and dressing well here on the channel, and I thought there must be chaps out there like me who have a story to tell as to how their better dressing standards has influenced maybe themselves or other people. So a little while ago I put a question out on my YouTube community page and asked you chaps if you had an impact, an influence on people through your style, through your sartorial efforts to present yourself well to the world. Send me the story and I would share it. And it would do a couple of things really. Firstly, it's just great to hear a story. Human interaction is always fun. But also, it motivates and it inspires. So if you're somebody out there toying with the thought of, do you know what? I'm fed up of dressing perpetually casually. I want to look a little better, look a little more stylish. These are some of the reasons why choosing better clothing, more stylish clothing is important, and it could be valuable in your life. So I'm just going to read these stories out. I'm going to sanitize them to a degree. I don't want to embarrass or name people for obvious reasons. But everybody has shared these stories with me with the view to sharing them with you. So hopefully you're going to enjoy these. Now my first story comes from a gentleman called Kevin. And Kevin says that, and I'll just read his story to you, and we can picture this scenario in our own minds. So Kevin says he's a new subscriber to the channel, and he's from the United States, near Pittsburgh. And he says about 3 weeks ago, he discovered the Chap's Guide channel, and it's been a blessing. And he tells me why. In about 2020, Kevin tells me, and I'll use his words, I was diagnosed with early onset Parkinson's disease at the age of 41, and it has been a mental roller coaster. Much of the time, I feel like I'm losing control of my life and where it is headed, especially since I was told by my neurologist that I should start thinking about a new line of work. Kevin works as a law enforcement professional, so a physical, demanding job. I started not caring about things as much as I used to because in my mind, my disease was going to take it all away from me. Then I found your channel and something happened. I began watching the videos one after another, and I came across one entitled, "Good Things Happen When You Dress Well." At the end of that video, you speak about how dressing well can boost your confidence. So I figured I would give it a try since I'd been struggling in that area. So I simply polished and shined my work boots. And you were right. I started to feel a little better. Then a short time later, I dug out an old watch that my parents had gifted me when I graduated from the police academy way back in 2002. The battery had died and I never bothered to get it replaced. It's now working again. I've worn it out a few times and sure enough, I felt a little better. Then I dressed up a little more for church and you guessed it, I felt better. Then I thought, what else do I have lying around that I could immediately change? I began to watch more of your personal development videos, and I now have a pile of old books that I never finished that are now waiting by the side of my bed. A journal that I never started is now on my desk next to my new fountain pen. The only classical part of my life that I never gave up on was my love of wet shaving. So I was quite pleased when I found your videos on that topic. And that's from Kevin. And Kevin, I think that's a lovely story because Kevin tells us that at a time when he's facing a personal challenge, a medical diagnosis which could have spelled despair and sadness, he's leveraged some of the philosophies that we talk about here on the channel, and they've made him feel a little better each time. Just polishing his shoes obviously will elevate your sense of style. It'll make you feel better. So it's great to hear that's been the case for Kevin, and I hope his elevation to Chap Nirvana, to his status as a better dressed man, will make him feel even better. Now, whilst Kevin's story was really how dressing better has influenced him as an individual, of course we know that often when we dress well, it influences those around us. And this next little story here is really good, and it explains a situation where that happened to this gentleman. So our chap is Sam. Now, Sam tells me, and I'll use his words again, he's a long-term devotee of this channel, and he was a subject of my first ever Am I a Chap series. So he's got a story as to how his appearance has affected others. And this happened last year. I decided on a whim to get dressed up and visit the botanical gardens in my town. A three-piece tweed suit, top hat and brolly, as rain was forecast. Some might say overkill, but I felt amazing. I was stopped a number of times by people complimenting my appearance, but one stood out. A young gentleman, maybe in his late teens, dressed in jeans, t-shirt and a horrible hoodie. I still remember his exact words to me. "Excuse me, sir, I really like the way that you're dressed. Can you help me, please?" It turns out that he was interested in men's style, hated how he was dressed, but didn't know what to do about it. We sat down in the Gardens Cafe, I bought us a few coffees, and we had a long chat about how I started to upgrade the way that I dressed. I mentioned the Chap's Guide channel to him as a reference guide for the future. Very kind. He was quiet, respectful, listened intently, and by the time that we'd finished talking, he had an inspired, enthusiastic look on his face. He thanked me profusely, stated he was heading into the city to get started, and left. It was basically everything that you cover in your videos crammed into a 45-minute random encounter with a stranger. But I think he will turn out just fine. He already had the quiet, gentlemanly manners to be chap-worthy. He just needed a nudge in the right direction. Who knows? He may pop up in one of your emails one day. Sam. Well, thank you so much, Sam. I mean, your time in speaking to that young person and the advice that you lavished upon him, you may never know, but that could be a pivot point in that young gentleman's life. The nexus that brought you both together on that day could be, you know, a hinge for him where he goes off in a different direction. He obviously felt unhappy about his appearance. It must have been eating him from inside to have the confidence to go up to somebody, a stranger, and say, you know, effectively, "I like the way you look, help me to do the same." And the image which Sam included with his story of, you know, how he was dressed on that occasion is clearly very striking. You know, he's a very dapper individual and dresses in a way which I think those looking upon him would know that he's a sartorial chap. He's a chap, and, you know, it acts as a beacon for others when it comes to having the confidence to dress well. So let us hope that that young fellow now embarks upon a life as a chap. What a great story. Thank you, Sam. Now, as we know, when it comes to sartorial style, it's not just the clothes that you wear, it's the accessories you pair them up with. And of course, one of the ones which I often bang on about here on the channel, my personal favourite, is horology. You know, wristwatches. They convey something to people that you meet. And the next story is where how simply wearing a watch changed a situation in this gentleman's life. So this story comes from a gentleman called Jose Luis. I hope I've said that right. And he'll know who I'm talking about when I unveil the story. So this is what he said. "Dear Ash, I am a 46-year-old surgeon in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And over the last year, I've been watching and learning a lot from your experiences. I do really enjoy outdoor videos. They remind me of my time in the UK, walking the countryside, wearing my Rolex Air King, my Barber B-Dale, and other items. It's really funny how things around the world repeat themselves. People here in the city look at me differently since I like to wear a suit and tie from Monday to Friday. They seem to treat me better, pay me more attention, listen to my words. Women tell me how elegant I look. Well, that's a reason why many men start dressing well, to be fair. But there is a little history I would like to share. A few years ago, we decided to buy a bigger house in a place called San Isidro, Argentina, I hope, and houses there are rather expensive. The owner was an old and wealthy gentleman. I was not sure at the time whether he would sell us the house, because there was a Brazilian Foreign Service official who also wanted the same place, whilst I was young, looked even younger, and I looked as if I may not be able to afford the place. In the end, we bought it, and while signing the papers, the owner confessed that he knew I was the one to sell my house to because I had a Rolex on my wrist. We laughed together. I hope you enjoy my humble story, and that is a classic example of how something as simple as wearing maybe what people might perceive to be an expensive, if not a very stylish watch, has made somebody realise that you were a smart and elegant man and somebody they could trust when it comes to, you know, selling their house to. It speaks volumes for your personality in the items that you've chosen for your clothing. Now, on the subject of wristwatches, I have another wristwatch story here, and this is from somebody called NP. That's all they identified themselves as, and I love this one. This is a really good one. I remember some years back in northern Italy, I met a lovely old gentleman. We were wearing identical Girard-Perregaux watches, and we were both surprised seeing each other wearing these unassuming little things. And of course, you know, it's not a watch that everybody would recognise. We bonded, and we have remained dear friends ever since. To that day, he wears only this watch, the Girard-Perregaux. Little did I know at the time that this was a charming man, wise and quiet, with his worn-out deck shoes and lovely old watch, but he was actually a senior member of the Spanish royal family. So it just goes to show, you know, little touches, something that breaks down the barriers, maybe of age, of class, of wealth, just by seeing that somebody else was wearing something like a watch, which you yourself have. It breaks down the barrier. It gives you the ability to stop and say hello and enter into a mutually beneficial conversation. And it doesn't matter who they are. I mean, this gentleman has been his friend for many years. And at the time, he was dressed in a way which would belie the fact that he held royal blood. But actually, I think that's a lovely story. And it just goes to show how little things, sartorial things, can alter, not the direction of your life, but it can make a new friend. And I think that's a lovely story. Okay, just a couple to go, and I hope you're enjoying these so far. If you are, by the way, and you've got a story of how your style has influenced other people, hopefully to the better, but even if it's to the worst, let us know. And I'll try and do another one of these videos in the future because I actually find them rather inspiring myself. So this next one comes from a chap called Jerry. And Jerry tells me he was surprised by the number of compliments that he received today when he wrote this. I'm a college professor, and as soon as I stepped onto campus, a colleague said, "You're looking sharp." Later, a student asked to speak to me in the hall about some personal challenges. And right away they said to me, "First off, and I'm not trying to butter you up, but I really appreciate how you always dress up and look sharp for class. You dress for success." I was blown away. Here is a 20-something-year-old who is going through some really difficult things in their life, starting off our conversation together with a compliment. He wasn't asking for anything, he was just updating me as to what was going on in his life. And after class, I stopped at a nice restaurant winery for lunch. As I was leaving, a couple at the same time held the door open for me, and the lady said, "I just wanted to say you look very nice. I have dressed like this before, at the restaurant and on campus, and I've never received this many compliments. I must have been projecting something more than my usual wardrobe. I'm thinking now I should have worn my bowler hat. And here Jerry has sent us a picture of himself wearing a marvellous bowler hat. Now, a bowler hat is really a confidence grabber and a compliment grabber as well. I own a bowler myself, and it is the one thing which I have to say when I wear it is like being a movie star. You know, it attracts glances and glares from everywhere. And as Jerry has said here, just dressing sharply, it reflected positively on him to his young people. So the young students, we don't think about it, but you know, when you dress well, you dress in a way to respect the people that you're meeting. If he's delivering a service to young people, students, you know, they are in essence his bosses, because he wouldn't be there employed in that job if it weren't for them. And by dressing in a way which reflects respect and courtesy, it impacts the young people, and who knows, you know, they will remember that as a lesson as well. Sartorial elegance, and dress accordingly when their time comes in the future. So of course today we're talking about dressing up well and how that has influence on other people. But that's not everything, is it? There's a lot more to life than putting on some, you know, sharp clothing. And one of my viewers expresses that in this comment here. John writes in and says, "I've not had any situations where my attire has made any significant difference other than people liking it. I have, however, had plenty of situations where my character has made a massive difference. It's good that the Chap Guide includes the latter as well as the former. I would suggest that the character is what is really important, and dressing up is just a bit of fun because we like to do it. Don't get the relative importance of these things backwards." And John, I couldn't agree with you more. You know, if you are an unpleasant person, if you are the sort of guy that everybody dislikes, just because you put a good suit on doesn't suddenly make you a better character. It doesn't make you likable. It doesn't alter the character traits that rub people up the wrong way. You are totally right. It's your character that makes the difference. The clothing is merely the polish on top. And I'm glad you pointed that out. And that's why I wanted to reiterate that. But our final story here is from long-time supporter of the channel and somebody's, you know, whose contributions I value considerably. And it's from a chap called Pete, goes by the name Nina. And this is a wonderful story, and I'm going to read it out as it was written. "I was at a lunchtime symphony one early afternoon. The auditorium was relatively full, and everybody seemed as if they were excited to have such a great performance so early in the day. I took notice, for the most part, everybody in the audience seemed to be dressed rather casually, which I completely understand for a daytime concert. I had decided to wear a suit and tie as I was off work that day, but thought I would pamper myself and do so. As the quartet began, a young man with functional differences started to make noises that others found irritating and disturbing. I think that others failed to realise this young man, who was disabled in some way, was expressing joy and excitement. Quickly, an usher came up to the young man and shushed him. The young man was quiet for a few minutes, then started up again. The usher returned, obviously irritated. He spoke to the young man in a tone that the young man could not understand, but I sure did understand it. I immediately stood up and quietly walked through the back row to where the gentleman and the usher were having this interaction. As I was walking up, I could overhear the usher saying he was going to ask the young man to leave. I went up to the usher and I said, "Under no circumstance will you kick this young man out." Well, this usher just looked me up and down, took in the way that I was dressed, and said, "Sir, I am so sorry," and apologised. I told the usher that this young man did not understand what you were saying, nor does he understand the irritation he has caused. I told the usher to bring the young man to the box that I was seated in, and I would sit with him through the rest of the concert. The usher did as I instructed, apologising the whole way back to the box. The rest of the concert, the young man and I sat with each other and enjoyed Bach together. After the concert, I took the young man in his wheelchair out into the lobby where his aide had been waiting. When the aide looked me up and down, I explained the situation to them, and they apologised profusely for not being with the young man. Then, as I was talking to the young man's aide, another well-dressed gentleman came up and introduced him to me as the musical director. The usher had told him what I had done, trying to cover his backside. When he shook my hand, the musical director thanked me very much and offered me free season tickets. You never know how far wearing a nice suit and tie will get you and the respect it will bring. Being dressed well may not have changed my life, but it helped facilitate an opportunity in that man's young life. Well, there's a good example there of John, the other viewer's observations ringing true. You may have been well dressed, Nina. You may have been, looking smart that day, but it is the quality of your character which I think shone out. The fact that you observed somebody who maybe had learning difficulties or whatever, and yet you had the strength to stand up and approach and put right a situation which was clearly wrong and inappropriate. The usher either didn't read the situation correctly or was so focused on their task of making sure the symphony environment was suitable for all in the audience to enjoy, they did not realise that this young man had different needs, and hence he was displaying his love of music in the way that he was. So even though your nice suit undoubtedly made an impact on the way the usher initially identified you and responded to you, I think it is your character which made the difference that day. So don't think it's just your suit. It's the man that you are within. And the fact that you took this young gentleman into your box, sat together and enjoyed the music of Bach together, I think speaks volumes for you as a chap. Because remember, when I use the word chap in my videos, it is merely just another way of saying the word gentleman. I just use the word chap as shorthand for gentleman. And you, Nina, are a real chap. Absolutely. Made a difference that day, and my salute at the end of this video is for you, sir. Well, chaps, I hope you've enjoyed this lovely telling of some stories of how dressing well influences the lives of others. If you had, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more like this, click the red button and subscribe. I would ask you to contribute to the channel your own stories if you have a story to share. I'd love to hear it in the comment section or send me an email. My email address is in the About section on the main YouTube page. If you'd like to support the channel, of course you can buy me a coffee or become a patron. And if you become a patron, there's lots of other video material which I make exclusively for my patrons, whose names you will see at the end of this video. So until the next time, you know who this salute is for today. Thank you, sir.